This is the OM system OM-3. This is Mon Mert. And that's Peter Dench.
Hello Tiffany. Bonjour. Je m'appelle Peter Dench. That's it. That's all I've got. Welcome to France.
Today we've come to Paris with Peter Dench to talk to you about the OM-3. I'm really excited about this camera because OM systems have really come into the travel and journalism space. Now in 1972, coincidentally the year Peter was born, the OM-1 came out, which was a beautiful film camera that went all around the world for photographers everywhere. The design was stunning, the look and feel of the prints and the images were great, and OM system really hit upon something special. So you're probably wondering why the name OM when at the time the business was called Olympus. And that's because they originally named the camera the M1, but Leica also had an M series camera out and they weren't 100% happy with the competition in name. So OM system recoined the camera O for Olympus and M for the series. After that, we've seen them release beautiful versions of this camera in digital, and today we're finally looking at a street photography only camera. But I personally am really excited to see what Peter can do with it. Now before we get shooting, I want to talk to you a little bit about headline specs. And for that I'm going to bring in the OM-1 Mark II because this camera shares a lot with the OM-3. Now first of all, we have 20.4 usable megapixels, which is fantastic because it means it should perform really well in low light. We also then have the Micro Four Thirds system, which we've come to love from OM system, and the reason that's great is because all of your existing lenses will work on the new camera. And stepping into the video side of it, we've also got 4K 60p 10-bit output, which is fantastic if you're working in journalism like our good friend Peter Dench over here. Now we're also looking at two new lenses today, the 17mm and the 25mm, which means your wide angle shots have never looked better. Today we've set Peter a theme, which is the foods of France. And for that we're going to go out and find some markets and some fishmongers to see what Peter can capture. And finally, I will be shooting on the OM-1 Mark II, so you'll be able to see the difference between the cameras and the similarities. So let's get cracking and see what we can get done.
I'm usually quite nervous when I get a new camera out the box, and I dedicate half a day to familiarising myself with it, setting it up. But within minutes, I was out on the street with this. What I do, obviously, get it turned on, strip it all back, go onto manual, get my settings as I want them. But I'm not an idiot. I know this has features. And so throughout the day, I'll start to build in those features to enhance what I want to achieve. So I do use flash, and what I'm often uncomfortable with is putting this bulk on top of a beautifully balanced camera. But actually, it seems to be working. It's not toppling at all, so I feel quite comfortable with this, which is important for me personally, for the way I shoot. So I've not photographed in Paris extensively at all, so it actually makes me a bit nervous today, especially all the great photographers that have photographed here, and I think this is the area where Cartier-Bresson took his bicycle shot. And as someone once said to me, when you go out photographing for the day, be better than Bresson. Well, I don't hope to be that, but just to be walking in his footsteps is inspiration enough. So there's no grip as such, but what is useful is there's a little thumb grip there, which even with gloves on, because it is bitterly cold today, gives a sense of stability in hand. So we've arrived at Le Marchandé Enfant Rouge market, which I'm reliably informed is the Red Children market. Just got the metro here and we've had a bit of a walk, and I really can't emphasize enough just how long, light this is. And again, I thought a professional camera had to have a grip. All my professional life, no grip, it's not a camera. But this is revolutionary. In the short space of time that I've been using it, I am now a grip-free photographer. Like all OM system cameras, I think this one is weather resistant as well, which we might get to test out judging from above throughout the day.
It is a competition after all. I'm going to win.
So I'm trying to look for things that are French, but without being too cliched. Or find the cliches and then shoot through it and try and capture something new. But I don't know what that is yet. So I'm just lingering, really, just sort of letting people get used to me being here, trying to pick up on what people's reactions are. And again, this is where a camera like this kind of helps, because I'm not wielding it at them. It doesn't feel threatening to point at a stranger or a strange situation. And so far, people aren't reacting in a negative way to me pointing it at them. So that's a win-win. I'm quite obsessed by this. I've never seen anything like it. I think I'm right in saying there's more focus points to this camera than previous incarnations, which again is helpful to me to make sure, focus is key to photography, as you know. So obviously this is a professional camera. I would be more than happy to shoot covers for the Sunday Times magazine on this. But to emphasize, when people look at this, it's kind of what I'm realizing, it's a talking point, but not a distraction. So people seem to be letting me get on with my job as a photographer without being intimidated. And I'm just going to try and emphasize that by turning to photograph this gentleman shucking oysters, I think. I'm on manual, which is just habit, really. I just like to trust my own decision making, especially on the ISO. I want to be in full control of that, while I trust handing it over to the auto. Just up here, it's my blueprint as a photographer that I want to know every time I release the shutter, that my settings are the ones that are being used. This is definitely an ISO 400 kind of environment, I think.
There it is. Savage. Savage.
This does shoot up to 120 frames per second, but I don't think that crab's going anywhere, so I'll stick to one single frame at the moment.
Two halves of a whole, just like me and Peter. The one thing I would say that's very obvious to me about these cameras is the menu system and the button functionality on this camera is different, and it's a lot better. If you like the classic OM systems design, this is great, but the quick menu on here is so easy to access and visually quite easy to navigate. that I think that's also something I like quite a lot about the new one.
I always wear a strap, which I'm not doing today. It's not bothering me. I'm cradling it like a newborn, you know, but I don't feel vulnerable without it.
Distracting me from winning.
As good as photography is, I wish you could smell the sausage. That's quite potent. So our competition within a competition could be
The most
best shot or How unprofessional is that? Just standing straight in front of me.
Merci.
But get on a bike.
So fantastic.
Follow that baguette. I know we're looking for food-related photographs, but if there's the potential that for a great image that isn't along those lines, you know, you don't walk past it. And what I'm finding also is the dials on top, even with gloves on, you know, I'm navigating around them quite successfully. And I'm told you can personalise all the dials. So in time, I'll refine, you know, what works best for me with this unit. So we're going to head into Marché St Quentin, which I think is a fish market, not a prison. For this one, I'm going to choose colour film on the film simulation setting, and I'm going to bump the ISO up to maybe 1600 to see how it deals with that. And I think I'm right in saying, Tiffany, that the high definition shot for the OM-3 goes up to 80. And what have you got?
I've got 50 megapixels, so I can't quite go as big as you. And if I was printing, that might be a bit of a problem. I'm also not able to change into a colour simulation mode. So maybe I should just give up now.
No, okay, let's have a look.
We'll see, we'll see. I quite like the carrot display. It's just here, and it's quite nice because it's next to a couple of sad leaks.
There's nothing more tragic than a sad leak. Are you saying the leak is overlooked?
Obsolete.
Okay, obsolete.
Obsolete. Are they sea anemones?
No, they're friends. So one thing worth mentioning, if you are going from the OM1 to the OM3, the batteries can be transferred to use in the OM3. And I just kind of grabbed a quick shot over there, and I only just realised I've got the 25mm on here, and I could go down to 1.8, which allowed me to get the shot quite swiftly. And it's an obvious thing to state, but simple things like that, sometimes I forget, especially if you've been using a 12 to 100mm lens, to suddenly have the freedom and the opportunity to go down to 1.8 has its advantages.
Peter's off shooting, and he could quite frankly use the advantage. So I'm going to take a few moments to talk to you about the OM-3. The OM-3 has a stacked BSI live MOS sensor, and it's something we've come to love about the OM system cameras. One thing that's great about that is not only does it have the 20.4 megapixels that we mentioned earlier, and the benefit of having less megapixels is often that they're better in low light, but they've still got that ability to push the megapixels to a higher definition image. Now in the OM-1 Mark II, you can push that high definition to 50 megapixels, and that is a lot of megapixels if you're looking to print for press. But in the OM-3, you can push that all the way up to 80 megapixel, which I think is really impressive for a small micro four thirds compact camera. And to be very blunt, I don't think that I'm ever going to want to go back to that grip classic camera that the digital era brought to the forefront. I like the classic lines, I like the vintage look and feel, I even like the thumb grip at the back. There's something nice about that classic camera that's making a comeback, and quite frankly, I'm here for it. Not only that, but it's 500 grams. I think that's absolutely ridiculous for a camera that feels so balanced and so professional. To be honest with you, I might even go and get the OM-3 back. After all, I've given him all this time to get the advantage. It's my turn to take the win home.
So I'm very happy. I've just found a woman with a massive tower of ham, and she was building a ham and cheese sandwich on these steps. So I think I might have edged ahead in the food photo France race. So before, I've been using the OM-5 system, and I have used the OM-1 in the past, and there are features on there that are pretty much covered with the OM-3. So if you're thinking about upgrading and you're worried about leaving features you've become fond of behind, you know, that shouldn't be a problem, because they're transiting into this package. You know, an easy tip for street photography, I guess, is when you've got a landmark such as Notre Dame here, you know, people obviously assume that's what you're photographing, but for me, it's the hot dogs and the mustard. For today, that's what I'm trying to capture. Hello, Kitty. So I think I've been photographing in Paris now for about four hours, coming up to 5 hours, and absolutely no problems, you know, and I feel like a less mobile camera, a more wieldy, a bigger body would cause problems, or more problems. So this is one of the final stops on my tour of Paris, and I've been shooting for over 6 hours, and my battery is at 23%, which is pretty good, because I've worked on the OM system for quite a while now, since 2016, and for me this is the best battery performance that I've come across. And when the battery does get low, you can run the battery off a pack and still continue to shoot. One piece of advice I would give if you are shooting food-themed photography is to keep your eyes peeled. Did you finally get that one?
I did.
Okay. For street photography, obviously speed is important. You know, you work quite quickly in stages, and I've found throughout today that the in-body image stabilization with this is, you know, performing well.
Now, I've confiscated Peter's camera, which you might be thinking that I'm cheating in terms of competition, but I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about the new lenses. So OM System released alongside of this camera the 17mm f1.8 Mark II and the 25mm f1.8 Mark II. Do remember that it's a micro four thirds system, and so the focal length is actually a little bit different than you're used to, because it just amplifies it a little bit more. What I will say is that both of these lenses are beautifully made. The weather sealing has been really great today in Paris because the weather hasn't been our friend. And then the thread is the same on both, and so what that means is that if you do want to have a filter, you only need one. That being said, my favourite thing about the OM-3 is that it has ND filters built in. It also has the film and the analog filters, So really there's a lot that you can get from this camera without having to take any of the pictures into Photoshop at all.
So I've had a day I'll never forget. Wandering around Paris with the OM system, OM-3, and it's been a joy. I've genuinely wanted to point this camera at people, and people seem to have wanted it pointed at them. I've not had one uncomfortable interaction. You know, maybe that's down to the experience I have shooting on the street. Maybe it's down to the camera, or maybe, you know, we're compatible. It's not been cumbersome. It's not I've not tripped over the dials, and I wasn't familiar with it before today, which I thought would be more of a problem than it has been. So I've navigated round it quite well. You know, I am familiar with the OM system, which is to my advantage. So I've been using the OM-5 for quite a while now, and I thought that was as light and as mobile as you could get. But this exceeds that, and even though it feels longer, it does feel lighter, and in hand, even without the grip, it feels as though I can do this and I can't stop sort of twirling it around. I haven't been worried about dropping it today, and you know, we've been on the go for quite some time. So the OM-3 for me is a street photography camera. You know, OM meets the street. Did it ever leave? I don't know. It gives me confidence. In hand, it feels as though it's making a statement, and for me, that's, you know, quite important. Thank you to Wex for bringing me out to Paris. I've had a very enjoyable and hopefully productive day. If you do want to find more, you can check it out via the links below.